Namaskara, the South Indian is here. You know, when we speak about land acquisitions by the government, which later is given out to public claim on any industry, it could be anybody. There's no pecking order here. You know, so therefore one has to be very, very careful. It's happened in Karnataka, and this is the story that we are focusing on today. There it is, allegation against Infosys in Hubballi. That is the story that we are focusing on, and let me tell you something, that we are going to do what is called a balanced discussion on this instead of shouting and screaming at each other. First, a disclaimer, politics and everything else aside, what Infosys has done for the entire IT sector in the country, and with special focus on how to empower people in terms of employment and their CSR activities, doesn't require any ratification or validation from anybody. I mean, if I have to do shows on that, I think it will take me at least 3 months. Yeah, so I'm not going there. But then there arose a question regarding Infosys, and this may not be just a story about that specifically, but to try and get an overall perspective on the issue. Karnataka BJP MLA Arvind Bellad, who is also deputy leader of the opposition, made a remark on Infosys yesterday, alleging that the IT company had not provided even a single job despite taking 58 acres of land in Hubballi, Dharwad. This is what he said in the assembly, and I am quoting him here verbatim. There is an industrial estate in my constituency where Infosys took 58 acres. They have not created a single job. Instead, they have done gardening and landscaping. Now, the BJP MLA also claimed that Infosys had got land worth rupees 1.5 crores per acre at just rupees 35 lakhs. Infosys's Hubballi campus, which has a capacity to house 1500 techies, was cleared in 2013. The campus was constructed at an estimated cost of 350 crores. Karnataka Industries Minister M.B. Patil promised to take action if the allegation had any truth to it. He said, and I quote him, "If land was taken but nothing was done, then we will issue notice and take action." Let me also say it here. Patil refrained from naming any particular company when Bellad asked what action the government can take. Priyank Kharge meanwhile suggested that incentives can perhaps be withdrawn. The larger issue is, of course, of providing jobs for locals or comply with rules. There is apparently a rule in place of industries complying with the requirement of giving jobs to Kannadigas. Industries Minister M.B. Patil ratified this as much when he said, and it's on your screens right now, under the Industrial Policy 2020-25, establishments receiving incentives from the government must provide 100% Group D jobs and an overall 70% jobs to Kannadigas. Patil also stressed that it is mandatory for jobs to be given to families who lost land in lieu of industrial investment. To quote him, he said, "Be it Infosys or any company, if land losers aren't given jobs based on their educational qualifications, we can withdraw incentives. We can even withdraw the land in stringent action." Let me once again say, he did not name Infosys as it were, but Infosys is in focus here, particularly their Hubballi campus. So, ladies and gentlemen, how or what determines job creation by industrial giants in scenarios such as this? Like I said earlier, politics aside, this is in no way a statement on a particular company, but begs for a larger debate, even as every party in every state promises jobs as its mainstay during elections. Let's begin the debate, but before that, we tried contacting Infosys, but we did not get a response which was favorable, as it were. So, because it's very important that we get a voice from Infosys to present their side of the story. Should we start the debate now? Surabhi Hodigere, who is spokesperson for the BJP in Karnataka, is joining us. K.V. Dhananjay, senior advocate, Supreme Court of India. Brinda Adige, women's activist, and also Bhaskar Hegde, who is editor TV9 Kannada Digital, and is my colleague. I think we are waiting for Brinda. Yes, Lakshmi, are we waiting for Brinda? That's what my director tells me. So let's wait for Brinda Adige, but let's understand what the issue is, considering that this is what has made headlines today in several local as well as national newspapers. Surabhi Hodigere, a very warm welcome to you. Namaskara. Very happy that you could join us on the debate. What is the issue according to you, Surabhi?
I think it's been very concisely and succinctly put by the Deputy Leader of Opposition today in the Legislative Assembly, which is that I think he spoke from a point of pain almost as a public representative who has previously worked alongside his constituents to make sure this campus was available. And today has noticed that there has not been the sort of job creation that was promised. I think it was a bipartisan issue discussion that happened, and this is something that we should, work together as a party as well as a government and make sure that the people who have been promised the particular jobs as well as those regions. I think it's important here to talk about the North Karnataka region that was a priority during the BJP's government led by Honorable former Prime Minister Shri Yediyurappa ji. And that region really is tired of false promises. North Karnataka, Uttar Karnataka, many of my friends have told me this, that are tired of false promises. So really to a bipartisan effort to make sure that Karnataka's overall development and this focus on North Karnataka is
right. But Surabhi, are you happy with what Mr. M.B. Patil said and even Priyank Kharge? They have said that they will look into the matter and maybe look at even withdrawing the incentives. They have not named Infosys particularly, and you know why? The issue is also about Foxconn. There are several other companies who are under, as it were, the kernel of the story, as it were. But I am saying Infosys because that is so kind of important to Karnataka and to the country and to the world in general. So, are you satisfied with the response that you got from industries ministers and also Priyank Kharge ji?
Again, I go back to an initiative taken during Honorable B.S. Yediyurappa's time when he was the Chief Minister, which was to come up with the new industrial policy 2020 to 2025, which I know it's, there have been some additions and not so much progress on that front. But I think it'll be great to have this included in larger policy matters. And you spoke about how there was reservation specifically for localites. I think that needs to be taken with a lot of seriousness and with strict measures.
Okay, Bhaskar, I want to...
A stronger response, a policy-oriented response, as well as a response that was a lot more than, something castles in the air would have been appreciated.
All right, Surabhi. Bhaskar, I want to ask you, Bhaskar, that, do you think there are two points or two aspects to this story? One is, of course, that, it is mandatory under the law, I mean the industrial law, like Surabhi said, that you have to provide for jobs when the government acquires land and then goes further, whether it is to a public sector or a private sector. There are certain rules in place, which, about compensation of land, also about consent from 80%, so on and so forth. But the other side of the story is jobs for Kannadigas. Is it about vocal for local? Is that an aspect that every government in Karnataka, and particularly now with the Kannadiga pride really flying high, we've seen in the recent times with the signboard, the controversy that it created with activists, hitting the ground and actually vandalizing property. Do you think there are two aspects to this story, Bhaskar, and how seriously should this be taken?
Yes, it's a very good subject that you have picked. The first thing is, in the context of Infosys, I had to add 2 points to Surabhi's. So one is there are fault lines in the government policies and approaches to getting investment towards to North Karnataka, number one. Number two, private sector is basically driven by market-driven this thing. So the role of government is restricted. So the question you raised about this, giving employment to Kannadigas and making it mandatory in all the kind of 70% jobs, I think it is a bit of unconstitutional because I'm not a legal expert. Number one. See, if you take the particular case, I'll just add 2 points. Infosys has a Bangalore campus, which is vibrant, which is working. They have people there. They are working. The software development, testing, various other activities going on. Now, the question is why this Hubballi campus is not working. It's a bit difficult to decipher because Infosys is a very well-governed company. It is not a very small company or a startup or whatever. And their corporate governance, adhering to public law are very strict and very good in that sense. I'm really puzzled why Infosys has not utilized this particular land and building to attract and not only the talent to start the work in Hubballi campus. There could be two reasons, as I mentioned initially. We see what happens North Karnataka because of the inclement weather, very heat and various other aspects. People may not like to go and work there.
Okay.
Number one. Number two, the other instance which I would like to quote here, for instance, ArcelorMittal. So they got land in 2010, but finally now we are in 24. 14 years down the line, ArcelorMittal has not started even their steel factory. So this is not the case of one company. That's the case in Bellad. I think there is a fault line, as I mentioned, with the approach that the Karnataka government has, this irrespective of the party lines. Because when you offer land and various facilities to these companies, it's a 50-50. The government has to do something, giving land, water, whatever. Then, of course, companies have to reciprocate and start their work and building their property and building factories and whatever. And, of course, they start operation. So I think it's very puzzling why Infosys failed to do this. And I think there is nothing wrong because I know this gentleman, Arvind Bellad. He's an MBA from France. He's not a ordinary person. He knows industries, he knows business, but why he raised, that's also should be looked into. If Infosys has failed or probably failed, if they have reason, of course we don't know.
Yeah.
So, but we have to look into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Very well said, Bhaskar. I mean, Bhaskar Hegde, my colleague, puts it very well. He says, we have to look into why Infosys, a company which is known to be very thorough and walking the talk, has done this. Is it the inclement weather? But on the other hand, he also says Arvind Bellad is somebody who will not shoot his mouth off. I have to take a break right now. After that, I am coming back and speaking to K.V. Dhananjay, Senior Advocate, Supreme Court of India. Back in a jiffy.
From fragile 5 to top 5, from a laggard to a leader, India under Modi has reimagined the world order. Presenting the second edition of TV9, What India Thinks Today. Summit theme, India poised for the next big leap. Listen to Prime Minister Modi unveil his vision for Viksit Bharat at News9 Global Summit, a TV9 network initiative.
Welcome back. The South Indian is here. Of course, I took a break, and before that we were discussing allegation against Infosys in Hubballi. What is the legal side to it? What is the legalese involved in this when land is acquired? What are industries supposed to do? What is due diligence? To speak more on this, with me is K.V. Dhananjay, Senior Advocate, Supreme Court of India. Dhananjay, welcome to the debate. Dhananjay, tell, for the benefit of the viewers, what is the rule? Because see, as one understood it, it is also about Kannadigas, and you have to give 70% of jobs in D category. So, is it about local? Is it about giving jobs? What is it? Because like you must have read the story that they've got land, Infosys particularly has got lands. It was supposed to be 1.5 crores. They got it at 35 lakhs. And after that, there is an allegation from Arvind Bellad who says there is only gardening and landscaping there. Nothing really has come up. There is no provision of jobs for those who may have lost their land. Dhananjay, over to you to explain this for us.
Well, you have an MLA making an allegation, And we have to assume, for the purpose of this discussion, that there is some truth to it. We are only assuming.
Yeah.
And at the very beginning, you did say that you had sent out invitation to a spokesperson for Infosys also to participate. And it would have been nice had they participated, because in the absence of their participation, they give us no option but to assume that this allegation has some truth to it. And because it's a matter of public interest, and this will be debated, therefore. So Infosys is a is a private person. It's not a public, body to start with. And all of these lands apparently were acquired from private persons who were citizens of this country. Okay. So when the lands were acquired from these individuals, private persons, most likely poor farmers, the government, must have had a very compelling reason to deprive one private citizen of his property and then to hand over that very property to another private person, the private person here being Infosys. So it is therefore necessary for the government to show what kind of public interest would be achieved by taking over land from these farmers and hand over to a company like Infosys. So the government could only show public interest by saying that they are going to impose condition A, B, C on Infosys and that they will constantly monitor whether Infosys complies with those conditions A, B, C. Now, the question therefore is, did the government sell off these lands to Infosys, in which event they simply won't be able to enforce any condition upon Infosys, because once there is an absolute sale, the person who's bought it from you will not be bound by conditions you impose, because sales are governed by a law, what we know as a Transfer of Property Act of 1882. And under that law, if you do sell off a property to another, they take it in an absolute capacity. And there are some exceptions. These kinds of conditions can't be imposed under those exceptions. So, so we need to know what kind of arrangement is there between the government of Karnataka and the Infosys. Is it a matter of lease, in which event the lease certainly can be revoked after asking Infosys, giving a show cause notice to Infosys and asking them why they have not complied with so many conditions of lease, and if their failure cannot be rectified within a short time, then the government would be at liberty to revoke the lease, something of that effect. And this is an important matter of public interest, and it's not about Infosys per se, but it's about the government acquiring tracts and tracts of lands from private persons on the pretext that it would want actually to serve greater public interest by handing over these very lands to companies that will in fact, do so many things for the state, so many things for the local population. So I think in that regard, the allegation that's been leveled against Infosys is so serious. If Infosys bound itself to give employment to X number of local residents, and then Infosys does not do so within actually the stipulated time, then Infosys owes a public explanation, not just actually to the MLA at hand, but then to the people of the state as to why did they in fact make a promise and why have they not fulfilled that promise.
Yeah, but you're right. Yeah, Dhananjay, very well said, but we really do not know what is the Infosys side. So it will be very unfair. Like you said, we can only assume and maybe presume that these things must have happened. I only wanted to know, I'll come back to you, Dhananjay, about a hypothetical case. If this happens, then what is bound on, let me get Brinda Adige first. She's also joined the show. And then Dhananjay, I'm coming right back at you. Brinda Adige, who's a very well-known activist, is also joining us, but on the phone line. Hi, Brinda. Brinda, there is no doubt about Infosys's role so far as Karnataka and this country and the world is concerned. I mean, I've put out a disclaimer, and we know the CSR activities that they do. One has seen, one has been witness, whether it is education, employment, also for the specially abled. We know the company's philosophies and principles, as it were. But the story is a larger story, Brinda. It's about how that a company which builds something on land which has been gotten from private, or the government has given it to the particular industrialist to kind of build an infrastructure on the promise of giving jobs, and in this case to Kannadigas, and also 70% to what is called the D category jobs. Do you think it's a serious breach, as it were?
Good evening to all. Yes, Sudha. First and foremost, let us place on record that CSR activities is part of the law. So there's nobody doing anybody a favor. After that, we want to come to this issue of lands that are being given, not just to Infosys, but several other companies have also acquired similar lands in the name of giving jobs to the locals first and to the most needy, whichever category that might be, as stipulated by the government. But here, what is happening is, like Dhananjaya said, a lot of small print that probably most of them who sold their lands don't even know about. For instance, once I sell my land on a given date and the government has given it or, leased it or whatever to this other party, what is the time frame by when this has to be put up and jobs are extended to the local population and to the needy? Now, we'd have no clue about it. Now, the MLA has some information and he has raised it in the assembly. But that said, none of the other information is available for public consumption on public domain.
Right.
And asking such a question at this point of time, when I say this point, it is closer to the elections. What is it that you're asking for? One. Two, if people have sold their lands and are waiting that I'm going to get a job within the next 30 days, 3 months, 6 months, and haven't been able to find a job elsewhere, then that really amounts to cheating. I'm sure Dhananjaya will be able to fill in more about it. And if that kind of a cheating is happening, then we are going further down on the poverty scale, because we are already touching somewhere the sub-Saharan African countries as a country. But as a state also, we want to ask these questions. Are we really catering to the people? Are political promises and promises by the corporate organizations being kept? Because right now what we can see is a no. And we should also place on record the number of women in the labor force has been declining for various reasons. Probably a lot of women in that particular area in Hubballi would be also waiting for that. So there are women, there are the poor and the needy, and many families waiting for something like this. And I think it is time that, whether it is Narayan Murthy or Infosys, they must respond. Give some confidence.
Right. Bhaskar, I want to come to you, and considering that you are a journalist and, and a seasoned one at that, do you see politics in this? Do you see Kannadiga pride coming into this? Do you see that the elections are close on the heels, and therefore, despite Arvind Bellad being a very highly educated man and not the quintessential politician, or rather the stereotypical that we all assume is only doing politics, is a well-read erudite man, but don't you see politics in this? Because at this time, to say where are the jobs for the Kannadigas, how come there are no incentives, etc., do you think it is purely an issue based thing, or it's more politically motivated?
Sudha, as we discussed, Dhananjay rightly put, we have to presume things. I think it may not be the case of politics. I think it may not be the case of this linguistic chauvinism also. Yes, I use very, very intentionally this linguistic chauvinism, because when you want a kind of skilled labor set for a particular group of industries, you cannot enforce certain law unconstitutionally to take only the locals into particular company A or B. So I think it should be open, because see, if in the case of not only the IT, there are many industries which need highly skilled set labor force, where people come from various states to Bangalore, to go to Pune, Gurugram. People bound to migrate from one place to other. It's quite common in the private sector also. I think there is no point in pin picking on this issue, but I think the very fundamental issue here is when industries take land, do they abide by the basic commitment they make? So as Dhananjay put it, the government might have sold it to Infosys, and the government might not have right to ask Infosys with respect to land use, no doubt. Right. But as a kind of ethical issue, I think there is nothing wrong in raising the issue.
Right. Surabhi, you've been raising your hand, and I'm sorry I couldn't come to you before. Please
No
go ahead and make your point.
Ma'am, I don't see this as a case of regional chauvinism or Kannada, focus on Kannada pride per se. I see this as a elected representative being responsive to the people's needs, to the needs of the people that he represents or she represents. In 2018 is when Infosys was allocated this land by the government of Karnataka, and it was right next to the airport for particular reasons. There has been many such, instances where work is yet to start, and there was a very particular reason why it was in Hubli Dharwad, why it was in North Karnataka. Like I mentioned earlier to you, North Karnataka is a region that is in requirement of such sort of initiatives and projects, and that's why the Beyond Bengaluru policy exists. Tomorrow, if somebody says, there has been land allocated here in Bengaluru, the anticipation that people might have might be very different. The second point is that, like Mr. Bellad has said in the assembly, the land was taken from farmers for whom that land meant a lot more than just land. It was their work, right? So there was some expectation that this would lead to a better life, a better
Opportunities, maybe.
Better opportunities, absolutely, for their children. You would see a lot of young people moving away from farming and into the service sector.
Yes.
Right? I take the point of Mr. Hegde that you need specialized labor, specialized skill sets to work in companies such as that manufacture software, hardware. But somewhere we have to start training our young people to be at that level, and opening opportunities, industry, education. Dharwad, Hubli is a big education hub. Dharwad University is so well known. These are places that have talent. So taking industry to talent is an important part of government policy.
Right.
So there has, like I said, what this BJP MLA and leader of opposition deputy leader of opposition in the assembly has brought up is the issue that there has been a lot of requests from the people
and
of
also,
North
why I thought it was, seldom, sorry to interject, but Surabhi, seldom do you see the opposition and the ruling dispensation agreeing. But I thought it was a very decent debate. I mean, it's so hard to find where he said this has happened. He alleged, I will only use the word allegation because nothing is proven as yet. But Priyank Kharge and M.B. Patil, on the other hand, did not name any industry in particular, but did say that they take cognizance of the fact and they will see to it that what can be done. So therefore, I saw this as more as an issue based thing, but I wanted to know from Bhaskar, my good friend,
Yes.
whether it is about politics, and he says no, it's not about politics or linguistic chauvinism. I'll come back to you for sure, Surabhi, but I have to give Dhananjay a chance now. And Dhananjay, tell me what is the, first of all, for the viewers, do the rules differ from state to state? And also, what is the rule? Because you live, I operate out of Noida, where a lot of land was acquired from farmers. Industries wanting to build buildings, colleges. There are, I think, so many colleges here, it's not funny. Also, hospitals have come up. Time and again, you see newspapers that, they have been deprived of their right. The schools, for instance, they had promised, such and such school had promised that they will take at least, let's say, 10% of students from the marginalized community and conduct classes in the evening for those little children, but that never happens. They come to school, they just sit in the veranda and they go back. So it's like very hogwash and I think pathetic, I would say, when they do this with children. What is the rule, Dhananjay? Where does the buck stop? And is it really something you cannot flout ever?
Well, the law is very similar because the land acquisition law used to be the Land Acquisition Act of 1894, which was followed across India, and some states have small minor variation. Like for instance, in Karnataka, you have the Karnataka Industrial Area Development Act of 1966, which builds on the Land Acquisition Act of 1894. So it's fair to say that the land acquisition process is more or less the same across the country. And these law was tweaked long ago to allow the government to acquire land for the benefit of another private person. Now, unfortunately, courts, who had a greater role in, making sure that such kinds of acquisitions are monitored more closely, they don't seem to have done a great job in that aspect. And that is why the parliament took note of the failure of the old Land Acquisition Act of 1894 and has replaced it with the 2013 law.
Right.
And the other aspect I would like to point out is not specific to Infosys, but when somebody raises an allegation against a private person in the assembly that the private person took benefits from the government on the pretext of fulfilling certain promises and that the private person did not fulfill those promises, then the private person should know that they have a duty to inform the public about what truth is there in those allegations. So it's not just about Infosys, but it's about the assembly proceedings are public proceedings, and people have a right to know what is happening in their assembly. And in the assembly, when an allegation of this nature is made, it's important for those who suffer the allegation to come forward and then clarify on their own.
Yeah.
And they always have a PR department. Look, if their stock prices, if some company stock price is going to plummet, they will issue a clarification within no time. Why then do not companies issue clarification? And this came sometime few hours ago. So it's important for companies that face allegations of this nature to promptly come forward and then to make disclosures. And as a defamation lawyer, I want to tell you very clearly that people are entitled to assume that proceedings of this nature, in fact, have element of truth to it, and then to assume that they therefore have the liberty to discuss on the pretext that there is truth to allegations that are made, particularly when those who suffer allegations don't promptly rebut or challenge those claims made in the assembly.
Right. Let me go to Brinda Adige now. And Brinda, I want to ask you that, the thing is that, okay, I think we've lost connection to Brinda. Bhaskar, let me come to you. Bhaskar, Karnataka is known very well. We've read this, we've observed it for many years now, and political parties aside, the ease of doing business. Karnataka is rather good when it comes to ease of doing business. It sees to it that, industrialists and industries get all, I mean, there are a quick, there are no pending issues so far as furthering their business is concerned. I mean, it's really right on top. And what the tremendous achievements and also contribution made by companies like Infosys and, Foxconn, of course, is also under the radar, but Infosys particularly. So, do you think that, particularly, of course, Arvind Bellad is doing what he is doing because he belongs to that constituency. But do you think that this is something which also, because I see that even the Congress, MB Patil, like I asked Surabhi, both of them they took cognizance of this entire thing. Do you think this issue will not snowball into a major political slugfest and will be solved as it should be about a giant called Infosys, and a gentle giant that too?
Sudha, I don't think it will become it will snowball into a big controversy. My reason is BJP knows very well that it has to toe the party's central leadership's line. That is pro-industry stance. So BJP can't afford to take anti-industry line, particularly when the elections are around the corner. And whereas Congress, when in opposition, they might have raised various issues, giving an impression that they want to, give priority to farming and other sectors. But when they came to power, they are giving very much importance to industries and, service sector and so many things. But still, there is one rider I have to put, considering if you see the graph of both BJP and Congress in the last 20 years or so, very few big industries have come and set up shops in Karnataka.
Okay.
If you say, for instance, Mangalore, Mangalore is one place which is basically a very kind of testing ground, which gave birth to so many banks and so many education institutions much before other places got education institutions of world top class. Mangalore hasn't got even a single company in the last 6 or 7 years. So that clearly shows there is something lacking in the policy level and the approach that both the parties have while dealing with industries and welcoming industries in Karnataka.
All right, I just have 2 minutes left. Surabhi, I'll ask you a question, giving you the last word. So, what Bhaskar said and what you also said when you started this conversation is that Arvind Bellad's, focus is more on the people of the region that he belongs to. It is not particularly any kind of a statement or judgment on a particular industrial house. Can I presume that? You have to unmute, Surabhi.
My apologies.
Not
I
at all.
don't believe that this was a comment on any particular industrial group. I think everybody knows in Karnataka that Mr. Bellad also, he himself is an industrialist and understands the value of industry in development. But I think that does not mean that there should be certain rules and regulations that are applicable. Mr. Bhaskar spoke about how this is a market cannot really run when government imposes, or necessarily does not run with government imposition per se. But I do believe very sincerely, ma'am, that the issue that has been raised today by a BJP MLA, and the stand that my party also has, is that we should grow together. Karnataka should grow alongside Bharat. But at the same time, we also need to take people along who won't get opportunities elsewhere, or when their land or their resources are taken away. It is a responsibility of everyone to take them along as well. So from a perspective of what has been said today, I think it's important to take it from this angle, which is that certain people have lost their right to land and living in a particular area. They must be compensated, not just with respect to the compensation for land, but also with respect to jobs opportunities.
On that note, we've had a very decent debate. I'm sure all of you agree. Thank you so much, Bhaskar. It's always a pleasure. Thank you, Surabhi. It was such a pleasure to have you on the show. Dhananjaya, my thanks are due to you. And Brinda Adige, I'm so sorry that we lost connection to you. I hope next time we have a better connection, you and I. Thank you very much. And at this juncture, the South Indian is taking a short break, but I'm coming back in a jiffy. So stay with us. Headlines: PM Modi to inaugurate Baps Temple in Abu Dhabi. ED sends 6 summons to Delhi's Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal. Farmers continue protests, block highways. Sonia Gandhi files RS nomination from Rajasthan. India UAE signed 10 MOUs during Prime Minister Modi's visit. PMLN proposes Shehbaz Sharif as the next Prime Minister of Pakistan. Minister Subianto leads Indonesia's vote count. US approves $95 billion aid to Ukraine, Israel and Taiwan. Cairo meeting to focus on 6-week pause in the Gaza war. Ukraine says it sank a Russian ship in the Black Sea. Vanakkam, the South Indian is here, and what a beautiful story. I tell you, sometimes, you really want to smile your heart and soul when you, hear of such stories. This is truly an incredible story, stuff that can become part of a fabulous short story. I'm going back to that camera. I'm going to first show you what we are talking about. There it is. Benevolent thieves return film director's precious medals. Where, what, how? Telling you. You know what happened? On 8th of February, a bunch of thieves decided to rob the house of a well-known Tamil film director. This house was in Uslampatti in Madurai, Tamil Nadu, and the thieves decamped with a huge booty which included 1 lakh in cash, around 15 sovereigns of gold jewellery and a gold medal. The film director is none other than the much acclaimed national award winning Manigandan of Kaka Mutte, which also won the National Film Award for Best Children's Film, whose Madurai home was targeted by the thieves as the director was away in Chennai with his family. Even as the Uslambatti police began investigating the case, the thieves returned to Manigandan's home 5 days after they committed the robbery. It happened on the 8th. They came back on 13th of February and quietly kept the director's award medals along with a note which said, quote unquote, "Sir, please forgive us. Your hard work is for you." The medal was left on the compound wall in a polythene bag, which was discovered by a caretaker in the house. Don't you think that's one of the most endearing stories that one hears in times like this? Imagine they take the medals away. Sometimes, you can sell these medals. I do not know how much they are worth, but they are worth in lakhs, maybe millions and zillions, because it's what you've earned, right? Manigandan earned this for his films. So they left a note, the thieves, that, "Sir, this is your hard work. We are returning it to you." While the robbers have returned the medal, other valuables are still missing and the probe is of course underway. Manigandan. Manigandan won the National Award for 2023 for his film Kadesi Vivasai, starring Vijay Sethupathi and Yogi Babu. The best film won the Best Feature Film Award. Manigandan of course made his debut with Kaka Mutte and also directed two other films, Kutrame Tandane and Andavan Katale. Who knows, maybe this thieves returning their medals may find itself in one of his films in the future. When you watch that film, you should think of the South Indian, because I told you the story first. And moving on, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is all set to inaugurate the first Hindu temple of Abu Dhabi. TV9 spoke to actors Akshay Kumar and Vivek Oberoi, who are attending the event at the BAP Swaminarayan Mandir. Take a look.
अबू धाबी की सरजमी पर जो दिव्य और भव्य मंदिर बन रहा है, इसकी दिव्यता और भव्यता किसी से छिपी नहीं हुई है, लेकिन इसके साथ साथ सनातन संस्कृति, इतिहास और धर्म का अपने आप में ये मंदिर अनूठा संगम भी करा रहा है। सबसे पहले इसके 7 शिखरों को देखिए, इन 7 शिखरों पर लहराते हुए झंडे को देखिए और 7 शिखरों पर जो नक्काशी की गई है उसको देखिए। हर शिखर की एक अपनी कहानी है और उस पर उकेरी गई जो मूर्तियां हैं वो एक एक भगवान और उनके परिवार और उनकी जीवन लीलाओं को प्रदर्शित करता है। लेकिन इन 7 शिखरों की एक और कहानी है, वो ये है कि जिस देश की सरजमी पर यह बन रहा है, यानी संयुक्त अरब अमीरात के 7 एमिरेट जो हैं, उनको दर्शाता है, उनको प्रदर्शित करता है ये 7 शिखर। और यही भारत है जो अन्य धर्मों के प्रति पूरी आस्था रखता है, पूरा सम्मान करता है, और भारत वही है जो वसुधैव कुटुंबकम की बात करता है। और ये 7 शिखर, ये मंदिर उसको साफ तौर पर यहां पर दर्शाता हुआ नजर आ रहा है। बीएपीएस स्वामीनारायण मंदिर ये पश्चिम एशिया का पहला ऐसा मंदिर है जहां पर एक साथ लगभग 10,000 लोग आ सकते हैं। ये 108 फीट ऊंचा, 262 फीट लंबा और 108 फीट चौड़ा मंदिर है। 10,000 लोगों के दर्शन के साथ साथ इसकी दिव्यता और भव्यता का भी पूरा ध्यान रखा गया है, जो साफ तौर पर इस मंदिर को देखकर आपको नजर आएगा। जयपुर के पिंक सैंड जो स्टोन है उसका इस्तेमाल किया गया है, अंदर इटालियन मार्बल है, और कैसे उसका इस्तेमाल किया गया है, कैसे इसको दिव्य और भव्य बनाया गया है, वो आपको यहां पर नजर आएगा। संयुक्त अरब अमीरात के 7 शिखर आपको नजर आएंगे, 12 समरन नजर आएंगे, इसमें 402 स्तंभ है और बलुआ पत्थर की इमारत से पूरी की पूरी मंदिर को सजाया और बनाया गया है। और देखिए एक एक मूर्ति को कैसे यहां पर नक्काशी के द्वारा जो कारीगरों, लगभग 2000 ऐसे कारीगर हैं जो लगातार पिछले 6 सालों से यहां पर काम कर रहे हैं, और उनकी मेहनत का नतीजा आपको साफ तौर पर इन दीवारों में, इन मूर्तियों में, इन नक्काशियों में नजर आएगा। अबू धाबी का पहला हिंदू मंदिर है और आज आप इसके मौके पर आए। अक्षय जी, क्या कहना चाहेंगे सर? चलते चलते कुछ बोल दीजिए।
वेरी हैप्पी एंड मैं पिछले साल भी यहाँ आया था जब बन रहा था। आई एम वेरी हैप्पी दैट आई गॉट अ चांस टू कम हियर अगेन एंड बहुत गर्व की बात है।
चलिए, अक्षय कुमार इस वक्त पहुंचे हुए हैं और बहुत ज्यादा कुछ बोलने के मूड में नहीं है, लेकिन ये जरूर है कि खुश नजर आ रहे हैं। और उन्होंने ये बताया कि कैसे ये मंदिर बना और पिछले साल भी वो यहाँ पर आए थे और तमाम भारतीयों की तरह वो भी उत्साहित और उत्सुक नजर आए।
बहुत बहुत खुशी हो रही है। कहीं ना कहीं एक दो धर्मों के बीच में, दो संप्रदायों के बीच में, दो देशों के बीच में ये मंदिर एक सेतु है। मंदिर आने वाले 1000 साल तक हमारे लोगों को, एमिराती लोगों के साथ में जुड़ा रखेगा, क्योंकि ये उनके दिल का बड़प्पन भी है और हमारे कमिटमेंट और डेडिकेशन का भी एक सिंबल है, एक प्रतीक है। इतनी मेहनत गई है इसे एक विचार से, एक विजन से एक रियलिटी बनाने में इतनी मेहनत गई है, और वो आज हमने देखा। मैं कई बार मंदिर में जा चुका हूँ, सेवा करने का मुझे सौभाग्य मिला है। यहाँ महायज्ञ